good life. Are you ready for the good life? Good life, the good life. Jesus is life, new life, good life. Saving souls, breaking strongholds. A new life, Christ the Christos. He doing the most for you and me. It's Kingdom Family, the Disciples League.
Welcome to the Disciples League, episode 7, The Walk. After you get saved, you start a process of taking up your cross and carrying it. We're going to go through 7 steps to get you to the 7th step, a place of rest. Here we go. Let's look at Matthew 22:36. It says, a man says, Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law? Understand? Got to have commandments in the law in the walk. Jesus says to him, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is all. Episode 6, we broke this down about what it requires to be all in. Jesus says in verse 38, This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like this, you love your neighbor as yourself. On all these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets. So you have to understand comes from the Old Testament. God is consistent. This came from Deuteronomy 6:5, where it says, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. So Jesus is repeating the law, the commandments. He's repeating the covenant that I'm going to give you access to when I die on the cross and resurrect during Passover. Give you access to be able to keep God's order, his law. Love him with all your heart. So let's look at step 2, the context. Deuteronomy 1:6, 1-3. This is the commandment. And these are the statutes and judgments which the Lord your God has commanded to teach you, that you observe them in the land which you are crossing over to possess. So we can't have all these sermons and shouting about crossing over and getting to the promise unless we're going to get to the commandments. We're going to get to order. We're going to get to keeping what he told you to do and observing that. Verse 2 says that you may fear the Lord. You fear the Lord because you're going to do what he told you. You're going to keep the commandments. He says, fear the Lord your God to keep all his statutes and commandments, which I command you and your son and your grandson. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. God identified himself in 3 men, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Father, son, grandson. This is the order of God. And then he says, you'll get to the promised land, a land flowing with milk and honey. So we got to understand this walk is about order. The context is about keeping it. And if we look at Deuteronomy 6:4-9, I'm going to go down to verse 7. He says, you shall teach the law, the commandments. You shall teach them diligently to your children. And you shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. You write them on your doorposts of your house. You want a house. Everybody wants a house. You want to be blessed. You want to get the promised land. But it requires that you take God's law and order with you. You live it. When you get up, when you go to sleep, it's an order. And so when you make it, when you get to the promised land, when you get blessed, step 3 is you can't have no other gods. Deuteronomy 6:10-14. So it shall be when the Lord your God brings you into the land which he swore to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give you large, beautiful cities you didn't build, houses full of good things you didn't fill, wells that you didn't dig, vineyards and olive trees which you didn't plant. So what we're talking about is God's going to bless you with things that you didn't work to do. You didn't have to manifest. You didn't have to conjure it up and do the algorithm. He's going to bless you with the things of the wicked, but you're going to have to go through this process of cleanse, humbling, getting yourself in the position, in the posture to be able to walk to the place, to get to a place of rest. And this is generational. God's just not doing it for you. The blessings and what he has in this covenant is for your children's children. It's generational. And in Deuteronomy 6:18 through 22, we're on the fourth step here. He says, and you shall do what is right and good in the sight of the Lord, that it be well with you, and that you may go and possess the good land. This is what we're talking about, getting to a place where we possess the land, of which the Lord swore to your fathers. God is generational. And then verse 19 says, cast out all your enemies before you. Before you possess that land, God's going to expose your enemies. And a lot of them are real close to you. A lot of them can hear you breathing. Trust me, I know. I've experienced this. When your son asks, in verse 20, it says, when your son asks you in the time to come, saying, what is the meaning of the testimonies and statutes and the judgments which the Lord our God has commanded you? Then you will say to your son, we were slaves of Pharaoh in Egypt, and the Lord brought us out of Egypt with his mighty hand. He showed signs and wonders. You're going to be able to tell your children's children how God did this, how you got to this promise, how you got to this land, how you got to this house. It's a testimony that goes from generation to generation. Step five, fear God. You got to fear God. Deuteronomy 6:23-25. Then he brought us out there that he might bring us in. He brought us out from there. He takes you out. You may go through a wild process. You might be homeless under a bridge, but God's going to bring you out of that to get you to where he promised you, to give you the land which he swore to our fathers. Verse 24, and the Lord commanded us to observe all these statutes, to fear the Lord our God for our good always, that he might preserve us. The statutes and the commands and the order of God is not to hurt you, it's to preserve you. And verse 25, if we're careful to observe all these commandments before the Lord our God, as he has commanded us, you will get to the promise. Step 6, to love God. Let's go to the New Testament. It's the same understanding. 1 John 5:1-5. Whoever believes that Jesus is the Christ, we got saved, we believe, they're born of God. And everyone who loves him also loves him who is begotten of him. By this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and keep his commandments, keep his order, keep his law, keep his statutes. Verse 3, for this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments. You can't tell me you love God and you don't keep the commandments. So on the seventh step, because we know God created everything 6 days, and on the seventh he rests. That's the order. This is the context of how all of this came into being. Leviticus 23:3 says that 6 days we shall do the work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath, a solemn rest, a holy convocation. You do no work. When you get to this place of rest and you get to the promised land, you're not working the algorithm. You're at rest. Jeremiah 6:16, stand in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths where the good way is, and walk in it. Then you will find rest for your souls. We got to get to the place of rest. Matthew 11:28, come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. That's where we're trying to get to, the rest. God is going to walk this thing out with us. You don't have to do it yourself. He's going to walk with us to make sure we get to the place of rest, prosperity, abundance, the good life.
The good life. Jesus is life. New life, good life. Saving souls, breaking strongholds. A new life. Christ the Christos, he doing the most for you and me. It's Kingdom Family, the Disciples League.